Hey everybody, it is April 22nd, 2026, and today Iran seized two ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and we're going to talk all about it. Let's get right into the news. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, support the information because that helps us and it supports this channel. So I really appreciate it, and let's get right into it.
Iranian state media claiming the country attacked 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and 2 of the vessels are apparently now in the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
This is Axios reports that President Trump is giving Iran 3 to 5 days to unify behind a ceasefire counteroffer. That's getting their side on the same page.
That's some big news.
On the same page with them. Lucas Tomlinson joins us now with the details.
So again, this comes just after the Iranian ships were seized by the U.S. Navy, by the U.S. Marine Corps Expeditionary Force, whatever you want to call it, Special Forces. And essentially, this is what happened right afterwards. And then Donald Trump is now extending the ceasefire and the outreach to the Iranians for a couple days. What was it? 3 to 5 days. We're going to be looking into all of this. So again, be sure to like, share, subscribe. We got a lot of good information here, and make sure we're connected. Make sure everything is all good to go, and we should be good. Alrighty, let's get into the news.
Lucas, what's the problem with Iran?
Well, Brian, just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire to Iran indefinitely, it appears that Iran is already breaking it, opening fire on at least 3 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and commandeering 2 of them. And President Trump announcing the ceasefire yesterday on Truth Social. I'll read it to you, Brian, and everyone. It says, quote, based on the fact that
there's not going to be a ceasefire. I just don't think that's going to happen.
We've been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded.
Okay.
Now, early this morning, the first attack by Iranian gunboats took place in the Strait of Hormuz, causing heavy damage to the bridge where you drive the ship, of course. The second attack took place 8 miles off the coast of Iran, the third attack nearby. Ship tracking shows a Panamanian flagged and Liberian flagged vessels attacked and seized. Iran's state broadcaster says the 2 vessels are currently
Wonder what Trump's plan is.
Iran's territorial waters, being held for inspection of their cargo, documentation, and related records. Recalls just a few days ago, on Friday, in fact, when President Trump said Iran would never again close the Strait of Hormuz. Last night, he said financial pressure
Yeah,
is
that didn't
key
last
to
long,
ending
did
the
it?
war, posting, quote, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day. Military and police complaining that they are not getting paid. SOS. Now, Vice President
I wonder who did that.
Vance's
Couldn't have
trip
been the
to
CIA.
Islamabad for a second round of talks with Iran continues to be on hold. Iran says they are not sending a delegation until the blockade is lifted. And certainly, Brian, you have to imagine that after Iran commandeered 2 ships, attacking 3 of them, that also will jeopardize these talks in Islamabad.
I would say so.
That's pretty big.
Thanks so much.
That's huge. So again, right after Donald Trump basically and the United States military seized the Iranian ship with that blockade, basically Iran snapped back and said, oh, well, at the end of the day, we're going to take that. And this is going to be our strait. Was always our strait. And so, hey, United States military, you're going to have to fight for it.
They were holding on to the ships, UK and Panamanian. And also 21 minutes ago, the
Fox
senior
News.
Iranian advisor says the U.S. blockade is no different than bombing us and must be responded with a military response. And that is the speaker, Mahani Mohammadi, an advisor to the parliament speaker, came out with that statement, we assume.
That's
from
pretty
the speaker.
massive.
So let's see. Do they want to end the ceasefire, Lawrence?
They definitely don't. No, they don't.
Want to end it. They will want a time to delay, to regroup, and I don't think it's going to work out for them. I mean, we've been watching them the whole time. We have complete control of the skies. You know, they shot one of our guys down, but we were able to recover both of our pilots. So that didn't go well for them.
Yeah, that was a very lucky
So
operation,
we
too.
got control of the sea, control of the
Look at all these people
skies.
in the back.
Also, those drone facilities, we've knocked most of those out. So again, as the general continued to say, we're on the 5-yard line right now.
Yeah, you're right. We've continuously heard that. We're on the 5-yard line. We've got to finish. We've got to make that touchdown, and we've got to bleed them dry, and that's what President Trump is doing.
We've got to bleed them dry, she says. Just sticking to that script, that White House script. We got to bleed them dry. Okay. we got to bleed them dry. That's the language that's being used. What about Israel? What about Israel? Meantime, Israel is taking Lebanon, and Israel is taking Gaza. Israel is taking the entire world. Argentina, we saw that Israel's Independence Day was yesterday. Sorry, I missed that stream, by the way. But at the end of the day, with all of that happening, this is happening, and everybody's focused on Iran, but they're not focused on the real funder of terror in the world, which just so happens to be at this current time Zionist Israel.
Costing them $500 million a day.
But we blame
They
the
have all this
Iranians,
oil.
apparently.
They have nowhere to send it because they can't send it to Kharg Island because that oil, those tanks are full. And they want to put them on ships and send them to other countries around the world, but those ships are not allowed to leave their ports, and that's because of President Trump. You would think that they would just hand over their nuclear, enriched uranium to us.
Why would
they? Is this
they?
really worth it?
You would think they'd hand over their uranium to us. You'd think they'd do that. You'd think that the Iranians would just hand over their nuclear materials and their enrichment fuel for us. You would think that the nuclear dust would just come to America. Why would we have to fight for it? This sounds like the Mark Levin talking points.
Them dry to lose their economy?
It seems to be for the IRGC, which might be separate from the foreign
But
minister.
how much longer can they handle this? How much longer?
The one thing they have is
How much longer can the U.S. military handle this? We don't seem to care about our own troops who are over there dying, and our bases and our ships are getting bombed, while China just tracks every single bit of military movement in that Gulf of Oman. We don't seem to care too much about that. We only seem to care about the IRGC. But the IRGC doesn't seem to care too much about us, aside the fact that they're just going to continue bombing us until we leave. And again, just remember the fact that we did have the Strait of Hormuz secured before this war because of Israel, that Israel started. And also note that Israel's stock market is doing pretty well. Record highs in 3 years. So just something to take note of.
So-called mosquito navy, the small boats that can go and do damage to big boats. We learned a lot from the USS Cole about how to defend ourselves on that. But these other tankers really have no defense.
Be sure to like and subscribe for
And again,
all
that was
Fox
the first
News
clip
latest
I wanted to go through. There's a lot of news here that we're going to be covering tonight. Reports are emerging of energy facilities being destroyed across multiple countries, with power stations, oil refineries, and other critical infrastructure all apparently targeted. 10 refineries have been hit in the span of just 21 months across 4 continents. The theory of deliberate sabotage is being floated online. Last week, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen unveiled a new strategy conservative initiative urging citizens to cut back on electricity and fuel use. The plan promotes remote work and increased reliance on public transit to reduce overall energy demand. The cheapest energy is the one you don't use. Coincidence or something more sinister? And yes, so this is the footage that has been going viral. This is true. A lot of oil refineries being hit over the weekend since last night. Again, yesterday was Israel's Independence Day, and on the same day yesterday, Donald Trump gave his biblical statement that was supposed to really mimic the Bible and the Third Temple building and all of that rhetoric. And so this is everything we've seen over the weekend, all the different explosions on the oil refineries. What do you think they have planned? Obviously, what do they have planned? They have an entire energy crash coming. They have an entire stock market crash coming. We have an entire Black Swan event coming. And that is what I see coming. Brent oil rises above $100 after Iran seizes container ships. U.S. maintains the naval blockade. So again, here's this clip kind of encapsulating that.
And our friend Rapidan Energy Group founder,
Let's take a look at this.
and President Bob McNally.
A little bit
And I
more
hate to be
context
so
on this
obtuse.
entire case.
I don't
how this
like
affected
the headlines
oil.
that say Iran says this, Iran says that, because Bob, my sources, maybe your sources, tell me if not, they don't know who, quote, Iran is. Is there, in your mind, a functioning government speaking for the majority of the nation?
Brian,
Yes.
great to be with you. Functioning, yes, but
Yes, I would say absolutely, and that's an honest answer. They are functioning. The Iranian government is functioning. 90 million people. They got a lot of people. And at the end of the day, they are more unified than they've ever been. All of this propaganda that we're seeing on U.S. soil over here in the U.S. media, this is why I cover this show. This is why I do Ecker Geopolitics, because it's not just about the news and the way that it comes at you. It's the flow of information. Who controls the information? When that information comes out? What kind of information is being withheld from the public? what the president is willing to speak about and what he's not willing to speak about. We cover all of these things. We cover the media. We study the media. And this is why we also study the markets, crude oil, because the markets and studying crude oil and how this affects your life absolutely does matter. And so especially in a time where we are looking at, again, like I just said a few moments ago, an imminent black swan event, in my opinion.
Also very fractured. I get this from my colleague. He's been on CNBC before, Scott Modell, former CAA field officer, knows Iran, speaks Farsi, very plugged in. I just asked him, I said, Scott, I'm going to be asked about this. He
oil
said,
prices are up.
There are fractures. These
Again, I predicted weeks ago that I think oil prices are going to go well above $200 a barrel. That's kind of my prediction. That's where I see things going. But maybe they will try to stabilize things, and maybe Trump's continued statements on the weekends and before the weekends, maybe that will impact the markets in some kind of way. They have been seeming to maintain some sort of balance in the markets, but we'll see what happens.
Decapitation strikes, Brian, they've killed a lot of people. Now, they plan for that. There's spaces, but you got mid-level, ambitious guys, and guys mainly, not too many gals, fighting for these positions. So there are fractures. But what Scott tells me is this. It's no coup. No one's a reformist, and the government's not about to fall. So while they're having a fight on the 12th floor,
I would say that's
who
true.
gets to sit in which chair,
Accurate reporting.
Groups, it's fractured but functioning, I'd say, Brian. That's our view. Fractured,
okay, I would love to know what you and Scott might think about this then, because what my sources, who are pretty doggone good, maybe some of the same as yours, Bob and Scott, what they're talking about is this idea that some of these ICRG or IRGC members, the military effectively, the bad guys with the missiles.
The bad guys with the missiles. Look at the way the media frames this rhetoric. The bad guys with the missiles. Are you sure that's not America? Are you sure that that's not Israel? Are we really the bad guy? Aren't we the bad guys with the missiles? Aren't we the bad guys launching the missiles at Iran first? Didn't we start it? Now, listen, at the end of the day, obviously we have to win now. The United States has to win this war now, because if America falls, then the rest of the world is going to fall to Israel. Basically, it's a weird thing. If America loses, then the rest of the world really loses. And as much as the world, wants to say, well, America can fall, screw America, we'll just ride with Israel, we'll just ride with China. Well, that's probably not going to end up so great for you either, because really, judging where things are at right now, I mean, at the end of the day, the United States does have the, real capitalist government. And when I say that, we still do have a sense of an actual constitution. And our government, our commerce, our business runs off of these things. Our economy and the global economy at this effective time still does run off of the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. The U.S. dollar does have the stronger hold, especially in cryptocurrencies, which we're going to cover those markets momentarily after this video. And so when we look at all of this, we have to consider that the United States has a real opportunity to leave this war and strategically withdraw, or we're going to be in a position where we're in this war for 10 years and Israel becomes the superpower of the Middle East, all trade, and basically controls every other nation. And they're pretty much doing a pretty fine job of that right now. And so this is why we cover the news and the media and all of these stories, and especially the rhetoric of what they're saying. Iranian missiles. Listen, Iran has their missiles. They do have their nuclear enrichment program. But the reason for this is to deter Israel from launching bombs and nuclear missiles at them, because that is the Greater Israel Project. Israel needs to secure Iran. They've already secured Syria. They've already secured Iraq. They've already secured most of the Baltic states. They've basically, Baltic states, most of these, nations, most of the Gulf states. And that's really what I meant to say. The Triangle of Death, that entire region is basically controlled by Israel. And now they're talking about taking Turkey. So let's continue this video, continue the coverage, and we'll continue covering all of this news that I'm talking about.
They're dead. If this war ends and they're cast out, they have no future. So they got to fight to the end anyway, because if reformists take over, they're gone. In one way or the other, they are not going to be, shall we say, welcomed back in by a population that they have been brutally putting down for 40 years. So with that in mind, we all want peace, but what's going to stop somebody, and this goes to your world, on the beach with a bazooka or whatever on their shoulder from shooting at a super tanker?
Right. No, definitely they have.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're defending their own land. They're going to do that.
However,
we would
Brian,
do that.
I would say that
we would do the same thing. We would defend our own land as Americans. Obviously, that would be important to us as well. We would act the same way if we had another country, storming in on our home soil, basically doing what we're doing to Iran. and what Israel, of course, is doing to Lebanon and Gaza and Iran and all of these different countries, and soon to be probably America if we allow it to happen.
They think they're winning. They're not worried about the mob. They have the guns. The people.
I think they're doing a
cowed.
pretty good job
They
right
may
now, Iran.
Face a bigger risk of overthrow than perhaps maybe your sources are right on that. I'm hearing these guys are in power. They're having a fight on the 12th floor. They're not afraid of the people. They've cowed them, and they're winning, and they're winning against President Trump. They are ready to eat grass for 6 months, to keep their chokehold on this jugular, to wait for those oil prices to go even higher and eventually equities to go lower. And they think they're going to end up surviving this conflict, having taught a lesson, and maybe even with some control over the Strait of Hormuz. So
Probably.
I would just
maybe even some control over the Strait of Hormuz. They already had control over the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we actually what's funny is we had the real control over the Strait of Hormuz to begin with. That's the funniest part of all of this. And then again, we lost it.
describe them right now as not fearful, confident that they have the upper hand.
Bob, all of that said, the situation is worse now than before the war started. The oil price is higher now. It's unclear. I mean, maybe to our recent guest point, it comes down to the 60s or 70s by year end. The stock market is saying this is not impactful.
Right now.
Oh,
That's right now because Donald Trump's statements are holding the market steady. And again, eventually everybody's going to figure out this pattern. Everybody already really has. Trump is basically making these statements before the weekend starts and then at the end of the weekend. And essentially right before or after that market closes, depending on the strategic need for that exact timing.
Fascinating. There are two things that surprised me, and I think many about this. One is we waited so long before attacking Iran's capabilities to disrupt shipping in Hormuz. Why we waited weeks and now we've paused, that makes no sense. I'm not a military strategist, but that makes no sense. The second is this disconnect between the financial markets, the equity markets, and every barrel counter I know, myself included, who sees a disaster coming. It is amazing to watch. I think it's due
amazing.
to the fact
I don't know
that
about that.
no one expected Hormuz to be shut for more than 2 days. It was a load-bearing assumption in economics, and people still can't believe it. Number two, remember, we've talked about this over and over again in recent years. Since 2019, we've had boy who cried wolf over and over again in the oil markets. 2019 Abqaiq attack, Russian invasion of Ukraine, bombing Iran last June. Each time oil prices spiked and they went nowhere. There was no disruption. So the smart money has said, I can't believe Hormuz can be shut. President Trump can stop this anytime he wants to, number one. Number two, every single disruption risk I should have faded. And so people believe this can and will go away soon. And I think that's sustaining this reservoir of hope and confidence that this is going to end soon.
Yeah, and I don't know if that really is true. Honestly, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that this Iran war is going to end anytime soon? We heard everything about that story now.
From Michael O'Hanlon, he's Foreign Policy Program Director.
We heard everything about that story now. We also have articles from CBS News. Iran attacked ships in Strait of Hormuz as thousands more U.S. forces head for the Middle East. So as you read these articles, we see what's developing, right? The Iranians renewed its attacks on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday while calling the U.S. military's blockade of Iranian ports on the breach of the ongoing ceasefire. President Trump said Tuesday he was extending the ceasefire with Iran indefinitely, backing off a threat to resume attacks if the regime didn't accept his terms for a wider peace deal by today. Meanwhile, the U.S. is sending thousands more to the region. Oil prices jumped again with a deal to end the war looking from imminent. So again, all these stories telling us a little bit, exactly where we're going. And it is going to be a continued war in Iran. Mediators push to get Iran, U.S. back into negotiations on Friday. We're going to see if that really happens. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really see a lot of hope for that. Okay, we have a lot of different markets telling the same thing, right? Oil prices right now, I mean, again, we've seen them, right? Crude oil crossed over $100 today. That's definitely a little scary. And you have to think about all of these different markets, though, and how this really impacts everything. On top of all of this other news, we also have, we have Navy Secretary John Fallon did not simply depart, but was fired by the Secretary of Hegseth per Fox. His termination is effective immediately. And then again, we have more coverage on that as well. And of course, we have the crypto markets. The crypto markets are responding in a very unique way as well. So the Fear and Greed Index is in a pretty positive state right now, 62. We were at 34 on the Fear and Greed Index literally just a couple weeks ago. Bitcoin's at $78,559. XRP's at $1.43. USDC and all the stable coins are pretty much right where they were at. Ethereum's at $2,397. Solana's at $87. Dogecoin at 96 cents, or at 0.96 cents. Cardano's at 25 cents. Chainlink's at $9.36. And Stellar Lumens is at 17 cents. Look at all these other coins. Their Hashgraph at 9 cents. So from where I see, the crypto markets are looking pretty hot. And again, with the Clarity Act coming in soon, we have a lot of big things developing. But at the same time, we have massive news as the Trump administration insider trading happened again. Traders placed $430 million bets on oil, and it declined in 15 minutes before Trump said he'd extend the Iran ceasefire on Tuesday. This is the third time this month, same pattern over and over. Massive trades placed hours before Donald Trump drops a bombshell. Iran, tariffs, policy reversals. Absolutely insane. And so, yeah, I would definitely agree. There's a lot of insider trading happening with crypto because we don't have the Clarity Act. And that is precisely why this is so important. The Coinbase CLO today said either rewards are included or there is no clarity. Simple, binary, non-negotiable. So Coinbase makes $1.35 billion annually from stablecoin yield. That number explains everything. The most important crypto bill in history still being held hostage by one company's revenue model. Thanks, Brian Armstrong. Yeah. And so this is what's happening in the crypto market today. In the meanwhile, you have just, a lot of statements being made by these people, and they're just not willing to pass this. This Clarity Act, again, going to be huge for the United States economy, for Treasury, for a lot of money that's going to be dumping back into the markets. And again, but at the same time, there's a lot of good news, right? The final push is ahead. Odds of passage this year are roughly 50-50. Uncertainty stems not from any single issue, but from number of unresolved questions that must be settled in sequence under severe time and pressure. So when you look at the overview of this, when time started running out on the 119th Congress's calendar, comprehensive crypto market structure legislation is nearing the endgame stage. Clarity Act passed the House in July 2025 with strong bipartisan support, 294 to 134, and has been the subject of intensive Senate negotiations since January. The Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee is expected to announce a markup hearing this week, likely for the last week of April. 3 key issues remain unsolved, according to Chairman Tim Scott: stablecoin yield language, DeFi provisions, and securing all Republican votes on the committee. Several additional issues, including the Blockchain Regulatory Certainties Act treatment of non-custodial software developers, ethics provisions related to government officials' crypto holdings, and SEC-related concerns, also remain live and could complicate the path forward. From the Banking Committee markup, the bill must clear a 60-vote Senate floor vote, be reconciled with the Agriculture Committee's version, be reconciled with the House-passed bill, and be signed by the President. Each step requires time on a rapidly diminishing legislative calendar. Clarity must compare for scarce Senate floor time against the Iran military authorization debate, the resolved DHS funding standoff, and the backlog of nominations. On Monday, Punchbowl reported that Senator Tom Tillis, a key negotiator on the Senate Banking Committee, called for delaying CBC markup until May. If the markup slips until mid-May, the probability of enactment in 2026 will drop sharply. Senator Cynthia Lummis has warned that failure this year could delay the market structure legislation until 2030 or beyond. In our view, the odds of Clarity being signed into law in 2026 are roughly 50-50 and possibly lower, though others at Galaxy are more optimistic. The uncertainty stems from not any single crypto issue, but from the number of unresolved questions that must be settled in sequence under severe time and pressure. So there's Scott Passant in that photo, and you have the other congressman there. So when you look at the entire crypto market, who knows what's going to happen with crypto, right? But the stock market's still doing great. April 22nd, Alphabet helps lead U.S. markets higher after unveiling new AI chips and partnerships. So that happened today. Those are big stories in the stock market. You can check that out. And again, U.S. stocks rise, shrugging off uncertain ceasefire prospects while the oil prices jump. And then on top of that, we also have the gold markets, where gold is at $4,727.59 an ounce right now. So that's pretty much what the market's doing and how it's reacting to everything. Again, all of this is coming basically right after the United States Navy seized these Iranian ships, right? The ceasefire that's been in talks, again, it keeps going back and forth. They're telling us we're going to have the ceasefire, then we're going to not have it. We're going to extend the ceasefire, then we don't have it. Then there's more attacks, more war. And that's really the idea. And all they're doing now is trying to maintain the markets and keep them at bay with statements, with Truth Social posts, and all of these things. But this was the big news that's been creating a lot of the turmoil.
US forces patrolled the Arabian Sea near MV Touska April 20th as the Iranian flagged vessel's container cargo is searched after U.S. Marines boarded and seized the ship when it attempted to violate U.S. naval blockade.
Again, the reason I'm playing this is because YouTube loves to censor my content when it comes to anything related to, up-to-date news and all that stuff. But this is really why we're seeing a lot of the markets react the way that they're acting right now.
U.S. struck, seized Iranian flagship Touska in Gulf of Oman, Trump says. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Swan fired several rounds at the engine room of the Iranian flagged cargo ship in Touska, disabling that vessel in the Gulf of Oman, President Donald Trump and U.S. Central Command said. Marines later boarded and seized the Touska. The U.S. has been operating a naval blockade of ships entering and exiting Iranian ports since last week. Iran fired upon commercial vessels attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz earlier. Then we had an article from Al Jazeera. Iran war live, uncertainty over talks. Trump insists deal to come quickly, but then again, we have all of this activity, right? Iran says it has no plans to send negotiators to Pakistan for a new round of talks after the U.S. seized an Iranian flagged cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump,
And now the Iranians just did it right back.
wanted to send J.D. Vance for negotiations. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening now, right?
And it didn't. They basically stood them up.
Still, President Donald Trump says the U.S. team led by Vice President J.D. Vance is on its way to Islamabad. Who knows if that's going to happen? 2 dead following the Israeli drone strike in southern Gaza. Iranian media reports that only 3 ships have passed through Hormuz in 12 hours. Lots of huge updates. Iranian vessels transits Strait of Hormuz despite U.S. blockade, state media says. And then when we look at all of the other updates over here on Glint, as we look at the maps,
Yeah, and so that's basically why we're seeing all of these massive events happening. And so on top of all of that, now let's get into some of the breaking news and some of the news from today and how these, how the deep state is really moving, how the deep state is operating, how they're actually taking this entire war and utilizing it for their exact benefit, which is to forward the greater Israel agenda and to make that money. That's what the CIA really cares about, making money and killing what they call the bad guys. But it's all about money. At the end of the day, it's all about foreign interests. It's all about donors. And this is what the game of intelligence agencies is. It's all about payoffs. It's all about you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Give me some info, I give you some info. And so that's how it works in the intelligence agencies. It always has. China to the Philippines. Want our fuel? Stop drilling with the U.S. The Philippines asked Beijing for emergency fuel relief days before hosting joint drills with over 17,000 U.S. and applied troops near Taiwan. China's state media responds, how can you ask your neighbors for help while acting against their interests? In the same playbook used by Beijing, it is critical minerals against Japan, using supply as leverage when countries step out of line. So again, this comes directly from Reuters and Mario Nawfal's account. A little bit more footage from that. Pretty crazy. The war is heating up, and the war is going to only continue on. China's backing Iran right now, and that's essentially the developments that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of movements in this Gulf of Oman, the Strait of Hormuz, and again, we're seeing it really in the entire triangle of death. All of the soldiers out there right now are in a pretty dangerous spot. And again, Trump, what did he run on? He ran on no new wars. Trump ran on no new wars, but we got more war with Iran. Why? Because of the Israelis. And that's ultimately what led us to this point that we're at right now, where we're watching war footage of United States military troops basically serving at the behest of Israel and fighting this war for Israel. Very sad to see. And we're going to get nothing out of this. There's very little reciprocation out of this. If anything, we share a little bit of the profits from the oil. Maybe we get the spoils from the oils, right? But at the end of the day, who knows if we're ever going to really get that when this is the main priority, it seems, for the military-industrial complex, for Langley, and for really the entire United States military and everything that we're seeing happen today. So we look at the Air Force, we look at Special Forces, and where their priorities are at. They're still all for backing Israel, and they believe that this is a biblical calling. And they believe in they believe in the Schofield Bible and everything it's said about serving the Israeli people, fighting and dying for Israel, but not your own country. And so, meanwhile, as all of these energy threats are happening to America, around the entire world, you have to understand that it does all tie together. And the only way to make sense of it, right, when we're seeing all of these oil attacks happen, again, throughout the entire planet, around the entire world, all of this chaos, one of the main problems with that is because we have our intelligence agencies working and entangled with foreign governments. And so it's creating all of the, problems that we're seeing today. So wanted to watch this clip. Let's take a look at this and tell me what you guys think about it.
The Havana syndrome that is associated with the diplomats in Havana, Cuba, who started hearing
I think this is happening all around the world.
Followed by short-term, long-term.
Goes without saying, really, right?
Severe head pain, vertigo, and more specifically shocks to the torso and extremities. And Sean Ryan just interviewed a gentleman by the name of AJ, top dog CIA agent, many accomplishments, who was attacked by this, basically this technology.
Do you remember specifically what happened to this AJ guy?
Yeah,
so he's about to get into the military technology that we've been using on Venezuela, that we've been using on Cuba, that we've been using for a lot of these different operations, right? Absolute Resolve, for Operation Epic Fury, for Rising Lion. This is all the stuff that we've been using. We have basically these direct energy satellites that are basically in outer space, and we can light up a whole village with one direct beam, just phew, and this one little beam can just take out an entire small village. And really, you can create an entire forest fire, which, what does that create? Create a forest fire with the direct energy satellite beam, then you can create quite an economic disaster for a nation, a country. What happens if something like this Yellowstone supervolcano? What would happen if our enemies were to point a direct laser satellite at that Yellowstone supervolcano? Well, that would cause something to the extent of not just a nuclear, but an atomic fallout in the United States. And what's even scarier is that temperature gets hotter every day in the Yellowstone supervolcano. So just, as an example, you talk about these things, think tank it, you look at the dangers of these weapons. And this is what we're doing to other countries. And this is why there needs to be some kind of system where we are not just nuclearizing the entire world, but denuclearizing the countries who are the most dangerous. And, in America, in many ways, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if we did denuclearize. But you can't have the United States denuclearizing when you have the state of Israel that still has nuclear weapons and control over those nuclear codes. So that's very scary. And Donald Trump just tried to use those nuclear codes the other night, allegedly, reportedly, in the Pentagon, in the White House, as he was watching this entire operation unfold with the Iranian ships. Very scary stuff. And, it tells you a lot about where things are going. Doomsday clock is only getting closer to midnight.
He was hit by some type of directed energy weapon and completely contracted his body. He thought he was going to die. He suffered significant cognitive, degenerative issues, hearing loss.
Horrifying.
It affected his eyesight, and he's still living with the fallout from that attack to this day. And what we're about to see is an MI6 asset who talks about how the agents and assets are being mandated or coerced to take on this system.
Yes, they are.
He explains what it is, and he completely identifies it as what people might call Havana syndrome technology.
Yeah.
Havana syndrome technology. So we'll be talking more about this in the coming future, in the coming days, obviously. We'll be covering more of that. But Havana, I don't know. Havana, I don't know. Dramatic scenes in the Strait of Hormuz, ships coming under fire as they transit the waterway. I don't know if this is a joke
scenes in
or
the
what.
Strait of Hormuz, ships coming under fire as they try to transit the critical waterway.
Look at this.
This audio shared with ABC News capturing a radio message sent by an Indian-flagged oil tanker.
You are fucking, you bloody, you bloody bastard, bitch, fuck you, bloody, fucking mother, bloody, fuck, bitch.
We're just having some fun. We're just having some fun. Got to have a good time on a stream, right? No, but down to some serious news. The Tron founder, Justin Sun, files lawsuit against Donald Trump's family's crypto project, World Liberty Financial. They wrongly froze all of my tokens, stripped me of my right to vote on governance proposals, and have threatened to permanently destroy my tokens. So that's what's going on with that. Again, be careful with your crypto. Very suspicious. Energy facilities around the world are getting blown up, and no one knows the exact reason. Here's a list of all the major oil refineries / energy facilities being blown up in this month. April 3rd, it was the Russia's major oil export terminal. April 4th, it was Russia's crude distillation unit. April 7th, India's power plant. April 9th, Mexico's refinery. April 14th, India's power plant. April 15th, Australia's energy refinery. April 20th, Russia's oil refinery. April 21st, India's oil refinery. April 21st, Romania's power plant. April 21st, Texas oil rig. A few of them have been blown up by drones, but most of them mysteriously caught fire. And this is happening when the world is already going through its biggest energy crisis in decades. Is someone deliberately trying to push the world economy into lockdown 2.0 by choking up the global energy? It sure appears to be that way, right? So this, again, is footage from everything we've been seeing and all the chaos, all the different oil and energy attacks that we're seeing around the world. Is the deep state winning? Is the deep state winning? It seems like they are. It seems like the deep state has some kind of grasp on the American people and keeping them from fighting back or rising up or even reporting the truth. And I think my theory is mainly people are afraid to lose their jobs, so they don't talk about this like the way that I am. They don't have a live stream where they talk about this and they cover this news. They want to, but they know that their job is on the line. Their job is in jeopardy mode. And that's one of the scariest things for a lot of people. So when you look at that, it's definitely a problem when it comes to where things are going in the future. Massive attacks all over the world, massive attacks on energy, and this is going to have massive impacts on global energy. Oil prices, everything. This is why I believe oil prices will go well above $200 a barrel. I think that's where things are going. I think it's obvious to see. And when you watch these videos, it couldn't be more plain as day. The solution is to get out of these unnecessary wars. Indonesia announces plan to impose fees on ships transiting the Strait of Malacca. Indonesia has declared that it intends to introduce transit charges on vessels passing through the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's busiest and most strategically vital maritime corridors. So look at all these movements. Look at the logistics of military movements around the world, and it should tell you everything you need to know. It's very scary stuff, because if you're not paying attention, you are not realizing that you are in the middle of World War III. And World War III is going to be a psychological war. It is going to be a supply chain war. It is going to be a trade war. It is going to be an everything war. But more than anything, it's going to be a technological war. You're going to have artificial intelligence. You're going to have VR, AGI coming out very soon. And that is the real race right now with AI and tech, with Larry Ellison, with all of these guys. What they really want, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, they want to control the future. Why wouldn't you if you had billions of dollars, right? You'd want to control the future. So this is from Eric Doherty. It's official. President Trump moves to help young people buy a home by allowing credit scores that include rent and utility payments. HUD Secretary Scott Turner and Bill Pulte are making it happen. We are taking bold steps to open the credit market for credit-worthy people, for Gen Z, millennial, first-time buyers using the Vantage score, using FICO 10T. So we're excited about the days to come. So let's watch this little clip. Let's see what the government has in store for you. They want to help you out, apparently. Let's see if that's even true. We're going to look at the comments, too, and we'll analyze if this is
yes,
even
sir. And, you know, the president has really
thing.
been laser focused, not only just keeping our country safe and our allies safe, but really here on the domestic front to bringing housing affordability down for the American people. And you know what, Charles? Every dollar counts when people want to buy and Americans want to buy a home. And that also pertains to the fees that you have to pay when you're getting a mortgage. It pertains to the regulatory environment. And
so here's the thing, brother. I mean, at the end of the day, most people are pretty strapped. I mean, I have money because I'm kind of a hustler and, I'm crazy. I maybe do too much work that I shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are strapped. They don't have money. So it's like by the time that all of these things have been implemented, it's like nobody can afford this. Nobody really even qualifies. And everybody's already lost everything. Everybody's already lost their homes and all of this stuff. So it's really too late. And it's far too late. And it's really not enough, if you ask me. Without crypto, without the Clarity Act, there's really no future for America. I mean, honestly, there's no financial future for America if there's no system of capitalism, for people to start businesses, to grow businesses, to invest in one another's businesses, work with me. I'm a real estate agent. I'll help you out. I'm also the CEO of Gold Shark Media AI. Will help you turn your business into a lead generation system. But at the end of the day, if we don't have a government where we are really able to build businesses and actually, invest in real estate without having to spend money on a $400,000 home at 6.5% interest rates, that doesn't really work unless we have a system where those things don't exist. But these people insist that, don't worry, 6.5% interest rates, 50-year mortgage, $450,000 home price for something that's worth $70,000. It's no big deal. Just go and spend your money on it. You need it. And that's what they say. Horrible.
Now we're increasing competition, we're increasing the innovativeness, we're increasing the rigor. This is for credit-worthy, trustworthy people. And, a lot of people have talked about it. President Trump.
Yeah, and we're going to find that a lot of people in the comment sections, me included, people who have perfect credit scores, they're not doing so well. And when I say they're not doing so well, I mean, I'm doing fine. But I'm saying other people aren't doing so well, even with high credit scores. One, because they don't understand the real estate market and they don't have a real estate agent like Brendan Ecker, but also because they're not really paying attention to this stuff and how it actually works. They don't understand how dangerous a 50-year mortgage is. They don't understand what people are going through at the ground level while they're making millions of dollars and living in ivory towers.
A law in 2018 to enact this, but now with Director Porter, myself, the president, and others,
what a joke.
We are taking bold steps to open up the credit market for credit-worthy people, for Gen Z, millennial, first-time home buyers, using the Vantage score.
Actions speak louder than words. We'll see about that. Leave it in the comments section. Is this guy crazy? Am I crazy? Am I wrong? Or what do you guys think? Is the market awesome? Is it the best market you've ever seen? Or are we maybe missing out and are we being led astray? What do you guys think? Leave a comment and leave your thoughts.
Using the FICO 10T, so we're excited about the days to come. Yeah.
And so that's essentially what they're saying on Fox News. That's the Fox News narrative. Meanwhile, Russia's envoy, Anatoly Viktorov, congratulates Israel on Independence Day. The USSR was the first to recognize Israel. It helped the young state to defend itself against the War of Independence. I wish you and your loved ones a peaceful sky above. Listen to the way they just kiss Netanyahu's ass. Like, it's really crazy. This is Putin, man. Like, they're so excited to meet Netanyahu. They love this.
Нашего взаимодействия в сфере экономики, это касается и взаимодействия в политической области, и между военными ведомствами отношения складываются.
Dude, Netanyahu, he's just like mowing down his competition. Netanyahu's just conquering the world, dude. We thought it would be Donald Trump who was conquering the world, right? We thought it was going to be Trump, but it ended up being Netanyahu. It looks like Netanyahu's the true baller now. It looks like Netanyahu, the war criminal, is the guy that everybody's supposed to look up to, apparently. I say no. I say he should be arrested. He shouldn't be treated the way that these world leaders treat him, with just total, kissing his ass. There shouldn't be this relationship where there's just no accountability. Nothing is said about, again, the innocent people in Gaza and Lebanon. And again, these world leaders don't care. They don't care about this. They don't care about that stuff. They care about more important things. They care about the scoreboard. They care about how many lives they can rule over the ashes of, And it's a very sad way of governing. It's when you live in a communist country. It's when you live in a dying empire. Is when your leaders care more about themselves and their own reputations, their own status, versus the prosperity and the freedom, the tranquility and the independence of their own people. This is the greatest sin of a true empire and the first signs of a dying empire. Justin, Secretary of the Navy, John C. Fallon, is immediately stepping down from his position, Pentagon says. Hung Kao is taking over as acting secretary on behalf of the Secretary of War and Deputy of Secretary of War. We are grateful to Secretary Fallon for his service to the department and the United States Navy. Undersecretary Hung Chow, however you say it, Chinese guy, will become acting secretary of the Navy. A lot of people like him. There's been a lot of positive things said about him. Me personally, I just, I really still believe in America first. I mean, I would like there to be somebody white and American personally. I mean, I find it a little uncomfortable to have, foreigners just representing our country. But, you know, this guy does love America. And so we'll see what happens. He has put out an anti-communist message, and he has fled from the Communist Party. So maybe we'll see something positive out of him. And that will be the signs to tell. Will this man be America first, or will he be Israel first? Will he be Donald Trump first, or will he be the truth first? Will he be the Chinese Communist Party first, or will he be America first? And this is what we're all really looking for. But I don't know. What's the flag on his suit here? You know, where's the American flag? I don't know what that is. You know, anybody knows, feel free to advise me. But at the end of the day, who is this guy? We're going to learn. We're going to find out.
I think this is a critical task. The president has been very consistent when he spoke to me, shipbuilding, shipbuilding, shipbuilding. I think if confirmed, I intend to go visit the shipyards. I look forward to hopefully visiting it with you in Mississippi, because I know you've done an exceptional job in the shipbuilding there. And I think we need to take some of the best practices from those yards, some of the best practices from some of the foreign yards as well, to learn.
What do you guys think about this?
Reinvigorate the industrial base in America. That could come from a couple of different angles.
We're going to see a lot of interesting things
Ships Act,
happen.
I know, is
Me
something
personally, I think, again, America first is what I'm all about. This is Alex Jones talking about how the deep state fears the Scots. And I like this soundbite because I'm Scottish, and I'm proud of my Scottish heritage. So let's watch a little bit of this. Praise to the Scots.
CIA's own documents and Ford Foundation, you look these up. By the 20s, they said, we've studied the peoples of the world, and they said the Scots,
That's
so it was
right.
British intelligence running it, they said the Scots continually resist, and the spirit of the
We
Scots
always will.
jumped into the Revolutionary War in 1776. The Scots were behind the Texas Revolution, which is true. And when they talk about killing Western civilization, they said the Scottish spirit has infested the West, and white people must be destroyed because the Scottish spirit
This is what
has
they fear the most.
possessed them. You can look this up.
It's what they fear the most. Proud of my Scottish heritage. Proud
That's what
of
they
it.
say.
It's where we come from.
But it was the
Hebrides.
Gaelics in general. The Romans had conquered everybody, but they couldn't conquer. They built Hadrian's Wall north of
It's my
London.
DNA test right
trying
here.
to keep the Welsh and then above them the Scots out. And
See why.
they say in the literature, they go, in the anthropology, the sociology, they say, the Scots just won't be assimilated. Now they're total leftists and have, because it was a creepy, not a frontal attack. Now they've cut the Scots'
We're going
balls
to bring
off.
it back, though.
And by the way, I'm proud of my Scottish heritage. You know, I had 3 genetic tests done for medical reasons. And because you do the cheap ones, they're all fake. They just give you garbage. But I did my genetic testing. I know I was a little bit Scot. I didn't realize I was a lot more Scot than I thought. So I guess that kind of explains it. You know, Trump's half Scottish, but I guess he's gotten away from what he's supposed to do. But
a lot of people don't know the power of the Scots. You can't deny the power of the Scots. Okay, at the end of the day, I'm like 21% Scottish, as you can see here as on my ancestry test. And I got a lot of Irish blood. I got a lot of, I got a little bit of French. But I'm like 28% Scandinavian, got like 17% Swede, 11% Finland. But I'm mostly Scottish overall. Got some German, some Netherlands, a little bit of Dutch in there, right? And then we got some Southeastern England and Northwestern Europe. That's my DNA. But yep, they fear the Scots. And a interesting book read that I always recommend to people is How the Scots Invented the Modern World, the true story of how Western Europe's poorest nation created our world and everything in it. And this is actually a book that's been recommended by Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's lifetime business partner, but it's an excellent book. I read it myself. And it really tells you about how the United States kind of took a lot of our ways of doing things, our governing, our law enforcement, all of it stems from a lot of that history of the Scottish DNA and that Scottish heritage. And that's something that I'm very proud of. You know, being Scottish myself and Irish and German, having a lot of that DNA, it's just definitely, you feel it. You know, you feel that Americana blood. And I definitely have that history. We came here in the, early 1700s, or I think it was like the late 1700s, something around there, right at the beginning and the founding of this country. And so I have like deep roots to America. And all I know, we can never let America die. And the Scots and the Irish and the English, we need to unite. And that is the most important thing that you can see the Europeans and the Americans doing, is uniting and remembering where we all come from, which is nations of explorers and conquerors and settlers, but in a way that isn't like the Israelis, because we did it in a way that was building and innovating. We built communities and societies. And at the end of the day, I think it was far less brutal than what we're seeing, than what we saw when the Americans when the Old English, whatever you want to call it, when they fled the New World, or when they fled England to come to the New World, it wasn't quite the same thing. We had something beautiful about this conquest, that you could say. And I think it was an important message, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and everything that came with it. The Scots did invent much of the modern world, our government and the way things actually operate, our justice system and everything, law enforcement, all of it. And so it's a very powerful soundbite, and because it's true. And the CIA absolutely does fear the Scot, the blood of the Scottish, the Irish, the European.
They do notice over and over again, it's people with Scottish bloodlines that are the biggest problems for their agenda. That's recognized. Look it up. It's very interesting, isn't it?
And they should fear us.
Very, very interesting. But Gaelics in general, Brits, Irish, all of it, Welsh, they don't like us. For whatever reason, in Satan's plan, we just don't fit in. There's a problem with the Scots.
Because we're Roman Catholic. We're Romans. We're Roman Catholic. And that's really the history of it. We brought so much of that kind of spirituality and that kind of ethos to America.
And then the Irish, and then the Welsh. And notice they went where the power was, though, genetically. That's where they run their whole operation. Hitler cried bombing London. He wrote this. He thought the British Isles were the real Aryans. He thought they were the very best. He said this. Oh, the Germans are great, but not as good as them. See? So Hitler's loving this, and these other groups are hating this. It's the obsession with Albion. That's the old Roman name for the British Isles. England and Scotland.
The Saxons.
And I'm just telling you what they're obsessed with. The globalists are obsessed. Use the Lord of the Rings analogy, he was a sociologist, anthropologist, historian, and linguist, J.R.R. Tolkien, and he said in speeches he gave, he said, the Rohan are the Scots. And so who finally smashes at the battles and finally has the power to crush Mordor is the Rohan.
That's right.
There's this spiritual obsession. Or you could use the Reddit Chronicles analogy of the Furian energy, the whatever it is, the Scots, this energy fears it. Imagine if we could re-energize the Scots. By the way, a Scots coming on next hour. Count Dankula. I didn't even plan this today. I'm going to ask him. Nice, funny guys, real sweet, till they're not. What is it about the Scots that has the Satanists so scared?
Christ.
But
the Catholic
entire
Church
of Albion has them scared. They hate the Irish. They hate real British. They hate Welsh.
So true.
What is it about them?
They don't assimilate.
What is it about them they don't like? Something we should study.
Well, the Brits have assimilated over time, but at the end of the day, that is very true. And I was named after Brendan Shanahan. But if you Google my name, Brendan, it means Prince, King. And it's a lot of my name was actually named a little bit after Saint Brendan the Navigator. And so there's multiple meanings to the beginning of my name and where it comes from, but more of an Irish name. But my middle name, Brendan Scott Ecker. And so proud of that Scottish DNA. We need to bring back that Scottish DNA again. We need to bring back that heritage. And ultimately, that way of doing things in America, our government and, the actual Scots, the native Scots who are living in Scotland. I'm an American. I'm an American with Scottish DNA and some Irish DNA, a little bit of German DNA, Dutch DNA, Finnish and Swedish, a lot of that. But we need the natives of those countries to truly become empowered and remember who they are. The Vikings in Sweden and Finland and Norway, where they come from, that ethos of conquest, exploration, Ragnar the Lothbrok coming across the new world and navigating the oceans, figuring out compasses and building ships out of, crafting ships with their own hands. And then all these other countries and these, nations they dominate having no idea of how these things were even possible during those days in the BC era or the AD, the BC. So it's crazy to think about when you look at history, how things have really turned and changed, and how easily just a couple generations can change an ethos of, an ancestry and an identity and a national heritage. Very scary stuff. Moving on from that, U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro announces a 15-court federal indictment against an international auto theft ring accused of using new technology to steal cars in under a minute. This is scary. No smashed windows, no drama, just a sleek electronic device, and in under a minute, the car's brain is rewritten. The car is gone in 60 seconds. Welcome to the new world of car theft. So I used to do a lot of salvage vehicle inspections when I was a cop. And you're like, well, I still do a lot of law enforcement stuff, just a little bit different kind of law enforcement that you can't really talk about that often. But it's different kind of shit, different kind of stuff. And when I was doing salvage vehicle inspections back in the day, you'd have to consider that. That was stuff we learned about, how easily these criminals are able to get into cars today just with, devices you can buy on Amazon. I won't, get too much into it because I don't want to motivate people. But it's rather interesting and rather easy today to break into your car. So it's very scary. You need to have cameras, dash cams. You need to have surveillance on everything, on all your stuff, air tags in your car, whatever it takes. And then, again, you need to make sure that you're able to document. Be careful. This world's a different place today. Very much is.
Count indictment, a 15-count indictment handed up yesterday in federal district court involving an international auto theft ring. They don't need keys and they don't need hot wiring, no smashed windows, no drama.
Nope.
Just a sleek electronic device called an AUTEL, A-U-T-E-L. And in under a minute, the car's brain is rewritten. The car is gone in 60 seconds. Welcome to the new world of car theft.
Yeah. And so definitely something to think about. Now let's look at some of the breaking stories that we were documenting that we haven't gotten to cover yet. We covered a lot of these. Four-star military officer Admiral Samuel Paparo confirms USA is running a Bitcoin node. We have a node on the Bitcoin network right now. We're doing a number of operational tests to secure and protect networks using the Bitcoin protocol. Again, this is another rant from Alex Jones. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. Got to have some of that Alex Jones energy.
Little sheep. Well, guess what I am?
The champ.
I'm not locked in here with you.
Little message to every tyrant in our government right now.
You're locked in here with me. So you're wolves, scraggly, ugly, you got mange, you like to hurt little sheep. Well, guess what I am? I'm a 170-pound sheepdog with big-ass jaws and razor-sharp teeth, and I like to do one.
Alex Jones, you're not 170 pounds. I'm like 200 pounds. You're not. You're like bigger than me. You're like, come on, dude. You're bigger.
Thing.
You're not 170
I like
pounds.
to get wolves by the neck
220
and tear their throats out politically, non-violently. And that's what I do.
He's
and
right,
I got
though.
your blood all over me, and the carcasses are lined up by the thousands. So, and if it takes 100 wolves to chew me down and get me down and beat me, good. That's what it's all about. That's how a sheepdog wants to go down, bitch.
Best energy ever, though.
But I did pray this morning.
Can we make Alex Jones president, though? Like, this energy is what we need. I want the Alex Jones energy for this country. We need it.
For God to bring vengeance, not through us, but through God and justice upon all of our enemies. It's time to start praying like Moses did and calling down the plagues on the real evil. They're trying to call on God for all their wars and their evil. It's time for us to say, no, you are the province of Baal. We are the children of God and Jesus Christ, his son, and we call on Christ to come to our aid. And I do, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Because this is a spiritual war.
It is, 100%.
And without God renewing my energy and my spirit every millisecond, I couldn't stand against the spirit of Satan. And not because of the fear of the devil. My problem is the pride and the war spirit and the barbarian berserker angle. That's the key the devil has that gets into me. And that's what I've got to control and keep locked down with the Holy Spirit. But fear? These little scraggling rats join Satan because they're scared of it.
Oh, Alex Jones is so crazy. But he's crazy like a fox, and he's right. 2 American CIA agents were killed in Mexico. What are your thoughts on this? This is an update from Alex Barnicoat. Be sure to give him a follow.
And it seems that these 2 American CIA agents were just killed in Mexico, and Mexico didn't even know they were there. And this could actually cause a war with Mexico. And it seems that these CIA agents were actually carrying out illegal operations within Mexico, operations which Mexico also says could cause a war. First, so this makes sense. A few hours ago, 2 CIA agents in Mexico were killed in a car crash. We don't know what they were doing there. We do know, though, that this comes at the same time the US has been carrying out many similar CIA operations all across South America, trying to stop the drug crime and cartels and things. Now, the US has said for a long time they're actually staying away from Mexico and they're working with the Mexican government. But this today suggests the opposite. And because of how big a deal it is, the Mexican president has now come out and given a speech. And you need to know what she said. She first said, quote, "Illegal ground operations are not permitted." She said, quote, "What has been agreed upon and stated very clearly with the US is that information is shared and extensive work is conducted regarding joint intelligence." She basically said, we're happy to work with the US, but we need to work with the US on things like this, not allow the US to carry out operations without us knowing what happens.
Right.
Fair enough. She also said, quote, "A formal diplomatic protest will be issued, obviously, along with a request to ensure that such actions do not reoccur." Now, she did also say that Mexico's relations with the US government is, quote, "excellent." However, she did then say, quote, "But there will be consequences if a violation of Mexico's laws were to be discovered during the course of the investigation." And that is something important. Mexico has launched an investigation now into what these 2 American CIA agents were doing in their country. And the Mexican president has said that if they find out in that investigation that the US violated Mexico's laws by sending these CIA agents, then there will be problems. And that is a big thing, because if the US has done this, they would have violated Mexico's territorial integrity, which is, technically speaking, an act of war. And so, it's very unlikely they're going to go to war, I agree. However, this is big news, so leave me a follow, because once the investigation comes out, I'm going to keep you up to date on this global news. And
very big news. Again, this was another update. We already covered a lot of that. This was big. Yeah, so they found out that the punishment that the Israeli soldiers that smashed the Jesus statue will receive is quite significant, but who knows? We never really see anything happen. We got a lot of updates from Alex Barnicoat, and just selectively picking here, Iran just rejected the ceasefire extension, and they say they're going back to war. So again, we watched a lot of that. We covered that. Wanted to go, this resurfaced in the algorithm. I thought it was rather important. I think everybody needs to watch this one more time.
There are 100 U.S. senators. Last year, 93 out of 100 U.S. senators were people whose campaigns had been funded by Israel, AIPAC, and the Israel lobby. 93 out of 100 U.S. senators were taking money from a group that represents a foreign government and foreign interests in order to operate our government on behalf of someone else. And they all work here, in this building.
This is Representative Ro Khanna from California, and he does not take AIPAC money, according to their website, Track AIPAC. Here's what he had to say.
It's too much. I mean, it's too much. All these super PACs and PACs are too much. I don't take a dime of PAC money, lobbyist money, since I've been in Congress, and I don't believe in super PACs. And so I can vote my conscience. But if you have people who have a particular point of view, in AIPAC's case, they're basically whatever Netanyahu does is right. That's their point of view. And they're saying, okay, if you don't take that view, we may come after you. We may have millions of dollars spending.
This is the war within your own government. This is the deep state right here. This is the true war. That you were wondering for years who the deep state is, and you thought it was certain names and individuals. No, it is a clique, a cabal. And guess what? They study the Kabbalah. You get it now? And this is where they all come from, the state of Israel.
Against you.
Now,
and so it's very scary. Because we don't have a control over it, and because our government seems to be just yielding and backing up. So this was a video that was released by Iran, more propaganda from the IRGC. But this is what they made, and I thought it was kind of funny and true. This is satire, not a real video, obviously.
We are having very great negotiations with Iran. If Iran doesn't come to negotiate, we're going to bomb them.
2,000 years later.
So where are the Iranians? This is from Iran.
then I will extend the ceasefire at Pakistan's request.
And that was released by the IRGC. A little bit of propaganda from the IRGC, right? But at the end of the day, it was still funny. Russian Patriarch Kirill compliments new Pope of Rome for being a part of the national political interest. We have positive relationships with the new Pope, and we hope that this kind of atmosphere persists.
This is a good
And that's basically what he said there. But those are big statements. If Netanyahu's got his eye on Turkey after Iran, he might want to reconsider. Their weapons are next level, plus they're a NATO member. The question is, will NATO back Israel eventually at some point? I think they probably will. It's looking like it's going to go in that direction. Either that, or it's just going to be the United States and Israel fighting everybody else. And then Israel's going to, of course, back off from the United States during the entire war and blame everything on America. That's the whole plan. Look at that hardware. This is Turkey. Turkish hardware right here. But Turkey's the next target of Israel in the Greater Israel Project, as we know. Right now, they want Iran out of the way. And then they're getting Lebanon out of the way right now as we speak as well. They have that southern front of Lebanon secured. And basically, they want Lebanon as a security front. And then they're going to extend into Turkey after that. Erdogan has already said that this is basically an imminent process. So will Netanyahu end up going after Israel, or will Iran be able to control Israel? Will America be able to control Israel? Is there really a greater psyop at play? After last night's display in Tehran, I'm sure Israel is thanking Iran for giving away more of its missile locations. Netanyahu's trigger finger must be really itching by now. So yeah, we're hearing a lot of talk about nuclear becoming more of a conversation. Who knows what's coming? Whose side are you on? Follow the money. This is a new video from Psyop Anime. I like following some of his videos because he's been covering the war in an interesting way. He's been taking more of the side of the United States and Israel, that Iran is the enemy, and a lot of the narrative that he's doing. But I still appreciate good art, and I like a good anime. Not a big fan of anime, actually, but gold. The crap. What do you really want from me? This is how it really works in America. Break a few mailboxes, cause a big scene, get on the news. The world sees your cause and you get paid. Not a bad deal, right? The tired blue-collar man says, wasn't it too hot? You're not afraid of any investigation? And the American says, you won't have to worry about that. Just take this. A little bit of cash. Go tell your friends and get riled up. That's so accurate to what's really going on. That's so accurate. Because really, you have the Soros foundations and these open society foundations ramping up these protesting groups in the United States, within these countries, basically to subvert their own country, to protest against their own country and all of it. Whether right or wrong, the idea is to create disorder, chaos, riots, and to get the people going. And the question is, for a lot of people, maybe that's just what is required for America to become, back into its state of, sovereignty. Maybe there does need to be some kind of revolution. Maybe we've reached the Rubicon. Maybe we've reached the crossroads. That's what a lot of people are saying on X. What do you guys think? Israel's currency just reached a 30-year high compared to the U.S. dollar. Says a lot, guys. Again, this was interesting. This was a clip from Kash Patel, and basically he snaps when getting asked about this.
The general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with...
But this is true. The Southern Poverty Law Center is such a problem, and they are basically a big funder of all these terrorist organizations, these domestic terrorist organizations, and when I say that, I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, yes, I'm talking about Antifa, I'm talking about all these, domestic terrorist organizations where their political motivation or their, ideological motivation is to usurp the government and to overthrow it, and whatever that means. So that could be violent. That can be through means of psychological warfare. That can be through means of rioting. All of these different forms of warfare. that you have to pay attention to. But the Southern Poverty Law Center has been funding a lot of this and protecting a lot of these people, getting them out of jail, career time criminals. And basically, it's a huge, huge problem in this country. It's what's leading to a lot of the chaos. This is what Kash Patel, again, I'm not a fan of Kash Patel, but this is what he had to say about it. I love how his tie is not even like tied up to the top of his suit. I don't like wearing ties either, man, but come on. You're in the White House. Wear your tie right.
Fraud and using the banking system.
At least he had a double Windsor.
Fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money
fact.
By lying to their donor network.
Even Elon Musk has been retweeting this and talking about it. This is absolutely a true thing that's going on.
Thousands of Americans to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups.
And who do you think's putting out all of the bricks, right? Like you hear about all these riots that were happening during COVID. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was a bunch of bricks that were being laid out in front of these buildings and these businesses and basically just being left out for Antifa or BLM or any of these radical movements to basically take and start, throwing shit at the, buildings and businesses and, causing chaos, lighting shit on fire, to police departments, churches, all of that stuff happened. And that was the design. That was the point of it. And then all the people who got arrested got bailed out of jail, let out. Well, really more of the leadership got let out. But you see all of that happening. And so that's really what Kash Patel's talking about. The question is Kash Patel really going to do anything about it? No. Is this guy, Todd Blanche, going to do anything about it? He's the replacement for Pam Bondi? Hell no. He's even worse when it comes to censorship. So really, this is just fluff for the MAGA crew, and this is really just for the MAGA audience, basically trying to make you believe that anything's being done about it, when really, even the Trump administration is probably enjoying the coin from the Southern Poverty Law Center.
The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state.
Which one? He just says at least one of them. Well, which one?
And federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on...
Yeah, but didn't Trump just say that we can't look into that? Trump just made a big statement that we can't look into fraud. We can't deal with all of that. We need to focus on the military. All of our focus needs to be on the military. Didn't Trump already say that none of this really matters to him?
As everyday Americans were
just a few days ago,
in believing
he said
that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud.
What are we doing about the fraud in California? What are we doing about the fraud in Minneapolis? Come on, Patel. You going to mention that? You going to mention the Nick Shirley Act, which basically demonizes any independent journalist who is trying to investigate fraud in the state of California? $10,000 fine for those people now, 5 years and up to 5 years in prison or something like that. That's insane. This is what we need to be talking about. But will he mention that? Probably not. Will he mention Minneapolis? Probably not.
This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred.
This guy is so a Mossad asset. Guys, this guy's a total Mossad asset. Just saying. Be warned. You can't believe anything he says, in my opinion. Mossad asset. Compromise. That's kind of how I see Kash Patel.
Important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful to the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center.
I want to see Doge come back. What happened to the Department of Government Efficiency? Oh, yeah, that got pushed out. Trump said he didn't want that. Scott Passant said he did not want that. So they pushed out Doge. Why?
Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies. And they got...
Yeah, let's go and investigate AIPAC. Let's go investigate AIPAC now. What do you guys say about that? I think that would be the next best move. How about we go and investigate AIPAC now with all these big words, all this motivated talk? Let's go. Let's go, Patel. Let's talk about investigating AIPAC.
Caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying. They are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today, we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General.
Love to hear it. But will there actually be action? Actions speak louder than words, last time I checked. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. This is by Ben Swan. In 2009, the Obama administration made an agreement with Israel that allowing the sharing of surveillance data, including information on U.S. citizens. This effectively gives Israel access to illegally collected data on American citizens and raises serious concerns about privacy and oversight with little accountability in place. The repeated reauthorization of FISA 702 is what enables these practices to continue across multiple administrations. Why is Trump pushing to renew these surveillance powers after he, too, was once targeted by them? Maybe because he's compromised, right? So this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say.
In 2009, Barack Obama was president, and under his administration, they made an agreement with Israel that Israel, through the NSA, would receive all of the intel. If they are using FISA 702, say to investigate terrorism, anybody that is linked to that person or in that sphere at all, they would use 702, and that all of that information goes to Israel, including American citizens or text messages or emails, like all of their communications in that sphere at all, they would use 702, and that all of that information goes to Israel, and that all of that information goes to Israel, including American citizens or text messages or emails, like all of their communications goes, and it's not protected, it's not covered up. Section goes to Israel, goes to Israel, including American citizens or text messages or emails, like all of their communications goes, and it's not protected, it's not covered up. So say if they're spying on someone, say from Syria or someone from you name it, some foreign country, and they're in America and they're using 702 to investigate this person to prevent terrorism, right?
Right.
Any American that was even the next door neighbor, like however they were linked, they can use FISA and 702 on that American, and they don't protect the American citizen. They still give the information to Israel. So that agreement is still in place. And so, I mean,
right now that's still in place. So all that information is going to Israel, who's able to catalog it, collect it, holds it, use it, blackmail, whatever it is.
Yeah, and Israel just put out a list of the top 10 most their anti-Semitic list, their anti-Israel list. Tucker Carlson is on that list. Candace Owens is on that list.
Yep.
My name isn't on there, but I'm sure I'm somewhere on their list. But imagine if, say, our government decides that they're going to prosecute anti-Semitism, which shockingly has been talked about.
And in totally vague terms, like what does anti-Semitism mean? They just say, oh, criticizing Israel is anti-Semitism. Well, it's like, well, if you're a researcher, if you're any person, if you're a teacher, a professor, your kind of job is to question that. If you're a foreign diplomat, your job is to question Israel. But if you question Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Why? Well, that's called a Trojan horse to silence you and to silence the freedom of speech. That's what that really is about. Anti-Semitism, and basically getting you to never question or stand up to Israel at all on any kind of issue. You're an anti-Semite if you do. That's crazy. None of this, nobody was an anti-Semite before this war started. Nobody was an anti-Semite, by the way, before the Israelis started calling everybody an anti-Semite for nothing, for questioning the Gaza genocide that we are all seeing happen before our eyes. But before the Lebanese genocide that we're seeing before our eyes. The Holocaust of the Middle East that has been perpetrated by the state of Israel before our eyes. And then they call us anti-Semites because we question it. And because we say, well, what happened here? That's anti-Semitic. You can't ask those questions.
Then without warrant protections and protections for American citizens, a clean FISA 702 reauthorization could open up that type of spying on American citizens and that information being handed over to a foreign government. Let's take Israel off of there. It's ridiculous and absurd to think.
And they hate us. Israel, like, honestly, like, Israel does not like America. They like America for the tax money that we give them to pay for their wars. And if we didn't pay our taxes to pay for these wars, if we didn't pay for the wars, Israel wouldn't be able to exist. They really wouldn't. They'd have to rely on some other country, and it would probably be Germany, I would guess, and they'd go to Germany. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. The Germans need to push them out too, in my opinion, because right now, at our current time in history, the Israeli Zionist sect of Judaism, not all Jews, but Zionist Jews specifically, are truly trying to destroy Christianity, and the bond that has been made, between Christians and Jews and Muslims even, it's all going away because of this Israeli state, this Greater Israel Project, Pax Judaica, and the Great Replacement, or the Clergy Plan, or Gog and Magog. Whatever you want to call it, there's many different names for this war that we're seeing. But the question is, who's going to be wise enough to know what it is, to be able to identify and navigate the way out of it? Well, that's me. That's why you're watching this channel. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to support the show.
That information on American citizens who are guaranteed the right to privacy, that their information could be given to any foreign government.
Right.
Any foreign government.
Right.
Any foreign government. It's true. And the video is just kind of not loading now. So ultimately, that's kind of what's going on. 10 oil refineries have blown up in 21 days. Energy facilities across 7 countries have been destroyed by fires, explosions, and accidents. Let that sink in. So yeah, it's very true. We see a ton of energy and movement, big movements happening. The Indian-flagged oil tanker Sanmar Herald was fired upon by Iranian gunboats last Sunday, fell victim to a crypto scam. Reportedly, the ship was contacted by an Indian man claiming to represent the IRGC Navy. The captain then transferred a large amount of money in USDT and was granted a right of passage. When the vessel arrived in the Strait of Hormuz, it got fired upon by the actual IRGC Navy, who had not issued any permission for the ship to pass. Oh my gosh. And then again, breaking Muslims set fire to an entire Coptic Christian neighborhood in Cairo, Egypt. They don't want you to see this happening to Christians in this part of the world. So I don't know what it is with Muslims. I don't know if this is the Israeli intelligence service that is masquerading as Muslims. That's very much their strategy and their way of doing it. But ultimately, I think it's definitely a problem. I mean, it's definitely a real problem. And, the question is, why are the Muslims attacking the Christians? That's what I'm trying to figure out. If you're Muslim out there listening to this, try to educate me. Why do we see the violence that we see in the UK and then in America even with the Muslims against Americans? I understand against Jewish people just because of the circumstances of the Israel war and, because America supported it. But why not cut the head off the snake? Why is it not literally, I don't mean that literally. I mean, why not, go after the source politically, legally, and lawfully, the Israeli people, instead of the Christians, instead of the Catholics, who are, in all honesty, the Christian Zionists who are backing this entire thing are just misled. They don't really understand Christianity at all, and they have no real Catholic background. They don't understand what the doctrines mean. So they're kind of being misled. The Zionists, the Judeo-Christians, they don't understand that none of these things actually connect. And so that's my question. Why are the Muslims so confused, and why are they attacking the innocent people, the Christians, the innocent white people? I don't get that. It's like, how can we unite against the state of Israel when we have this going on? So again, who knows? Maybe this was Israel who did this. But if this was Muslims doing on Christian, on a Christian population, then it's like, come on. But ultimately, again, you have to dig deeper, and, I'm sure there's so much more information. The more information we learn about these things, we figure out rather quickly that there's always different players involved, right? And oftentimes what you see with these videos, you see a lot of the time that it ends up being Israeli military. Okay, so yeah, readers added context to this video for another post. This video, first posted on Instagram on January 29th, 2026, shows an accidental fire caused by a short circuit in Nazir, Cairo. Okay, so that, again, is an older video, misleading information there. That's why we fact check everything. That's why we do verify information. That's why I bookmark those posts as well. So that way we can go through it. We analyze what is true and what is false. Live time. That's what we do. Like, share, subscribe, support if you enjoy that. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee has been recalled to Washington, D.C. That was yesterday. Again, a lot of different things going on in the algorithm. Palestinian families stranded in horror as Israelites set fire to their home and surrounded it to prevent escape. 1-year-old baby among injured. So again, imagine if this was your home, your family. 1-year-old child injured in this. And this is the Israeli people. This is what they're doing to innocent civilians, Palestinians. And what's interesting is that the Palestinians have more Semitic DNA than the Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews do. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Could change everything. Well, a few moments ago, the Iranian foreign minister...
And this was last night, 23 hours ago, by Alex
Sergei
Barnico.
Lavrov, the Russian foreign ministry. And the Russian foreign ministry released a statement of what they spoke about in the phone call. And you need to know about this. Well, first, Russia says that the Iranian foreign minister came out and told Russia what is happening. Specifically, Russia said, quote, Aragachi informed us of Iran's position regarding the ceasefire violations. Russia said that those violations Iran was talking about was America seizing a Iranian cargo ship yesterday and the American naval blockade against Iran. Now, Russia also said in their statement what Russia said to Iran in response to Iran saying this. Russia said that they, quote, reiterated the importance of continuing diplomatic efforts and avoiding a relapse into armed confrontation. Russia basically called for peace. However, they did speak about one thing which could change everything. And what they spoke about was Iran saying to Russia that all Russian cargo ships, military vessels, etc. will be granted free passage through the Strait of Hormuz. And this makes Russia the second country, second to China, that has been allowed free passage through the Strait of Hormuz, despite Iran shutting it for everyone else. Russia said, quote, Iran reaffirmed its readiness to take all steps to ensure the unimpeded passage of Russian vessels and cargo through the aforementioned waterway. So basically, Russian ships are now going to be allowed free passage through the Strait of Hormuz, thanks to this new phone call today between the Iranian foreign minister and the Russian foreign minister. And so, this could change a lot. And when the US responds, and I'm sure they will,
it's pretty big news.
Leave me a follow, because I'm going to keep you up to date on all the global news.
Yeah, that's massive. So that's pretty much the news for the day, and that's what we're dealing with in the algorithms. What do you guys think about all of this? And what do you guys think about the news for today? Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, support the stream, support the show. And with that being said, stay prudent, stay powerful, and stay wealthy.
Mm-hmm.